All right, thanks for joining us at our first virtual stop. We're here at the Bermudagrass plots here down at Cimarron Valley Research Center. And with me at this first stop is Dr. Alex Rocateli. He's our forage specialist for OSU. And Dr. Rocateli, you were going to tell us about some of these hybrid varieties of Bermudagrass and their potential. So I'll turn it over to you and let you get started.
Exactly, like in 2016 I started sprigging some of the most used Bermuda grasses here in Oklahoma because I realized that there was lots of questions about how they are yielding across the state. And as you can see, Perkins is one of my locations.
Now you have these plots at other locations also.
Yes. We have these replicated in other locations exactly as is, and that is Haskell, Chickasha, and Lane.
Okay, so when, you said in 16, at what time of the year did you establish these varieties, and what was the management practices that you used in establishing? Like when was your sprigging date?
Okay, I'm gonna start saying that, Nathan. Do what I tell you, don't do what I did, okay? Unfortunately, on 2016, when I started, I sprigged 2 locations. That was here and in Chickasha. As you can see there, we have irrigation, right? So due to that, I could have the luxury of sprigging that in June, okay? It was hot, and that's not a good time to sprig Bermuda grass. But once we have that luxury, we could do it and make it right. Now, if you are in a dry land situation, don't do that. I would say as soon as the last killing frost is gone, is the best time for you to go there and sprig.
Okay, last killing frost, best time to establish your sprig variety.
Right after.
Okay, so, and in all these test plots, whether it's here at Perkins or at Chickasha or at Lane or Haskell or any of them, all the management has been the same on all these different varieties.
Right. The management has been the same since 2016, and the first year production that we are talking is 2017. So on 2017, 18, and 19, last year, what we had done is we had applied 200 pounds of actual nitrogen in the very beginning when we see that the Bermuda grass already finished green up and was actively growing, having about 3 inches stolons, new stolons coming. So that's when we apply the nitrogen, always with doing soil test to see if the pH was correct and PK was sufficient in the soil.
Okay, so phosphorus and potash applications were based off soil test, and then the nitrogen application was consistent across the plots.
Exactly.
All right. Okay.
And also we had done only 3 cuts. Only 3 cuts during those last years. Now, this coming year, we are changing a little bit because we get enough information for 3 years on that kind of management. So this year, we are doing something, I would say, more efficient. We are splitting those applications, these 200 pounds of nitrogen, 50 pounds cut, 50 pounds cut. We are splitting the nitrogen application, right? Because we had learned that the quality and the yield start to fall drastically in the last cut. Of course, there is a weather component there, but we are seeing that the fact that we're applying all the nitrogen at once, that it's affecting also and making the quality of the last cuts lower.
Sure. Higher maturity, lower nutritional value, therefore the protein and the nutritive quality of that Bermuda grass is declining because it's just running out of nitrogen, being a one-time application early in the season. All right, so Dr. Rocateli, why don't we go through some of these varieties? Maybe you tell us some of the differences that or characteristics of these varieties that make them unique.
So this is pretty much a variety trial. We try to do here as realistic as we can with a field. I'm not trying to make that a very nice and dandy research plot. I'm trying to do that more a kind of a management that's going to be in the real world. I would tell that we have some PDF versions of the fact sheets, current reports that has the yields in the last years, and also another PDF file that has the 2 first cuts yields of this year. So I think that Anybody that really want to see how they are doing on yield, just refer to those reports and also fact sheets, and take a look, and we can discuss later on yield base. But now I would like just touch a little bit on the varieties that we are evaluating as sprig varieties here. So we have from Greenfield, that is from the fifths, that I would say is the oldest hybrids that we have here, to Goodwell, that's exactly right there. That's the newest hybrid that we have. Okay, so you can see that the Greenfield keeps pretty much the same characteristics of a common Bermuda grass. What I'm saying with that, you can see that they maintain themselves short, but they have a more close canopy. They produce more runners. So that's why we say that this type of variety, it's very suitable for grazing, because it's very resistant to the stepping, and also is producing forage more evenly during the season. So as soon as the animal go grazing, new is coming and growing at the same time. Now, what like geneticists tried to do in the last decades was to make this variety from this go to that. You can see here that you have a variety, and this is a very well-known variety here in Oklahoma, Midland 99. You can see that is a much more upright growth, but look what happened right here. You can see that we have open spaces. It's more a sparse sod. And look what happened. It's more prone to weeds because we have those spaces opened here. What happened is that was developed more thinking about the haying, because what you want when you are haying is to cut as much forage as you can at that period of time and dry it, right? If you are, doesn't mean that you cannot hay a Greenfield, you can, but in every cut you're gonna have less forage that you are catching up, and perhaps you need to have more frequent cuts.
So you've got an upright variety that you get greater harvest versus one that's more prostrate, and then that way then you know, you're not getting much stand up, and thus your hay yields are going to be declined compared to this, because it's not standing up and you just can't grab it and pick it up when you're cutting the hay.
Exactly right.
Okay. All right.
So now, Nathan, when we talk about the performance of those varieties, on all locations that I have tested, I see that all of them are winter hardness, okay? Even we go, of course, in Lane, that's pretty south, all of them do pretty well. And we come up to here, that is, I would say, the up north that we have so far, they are doing well. But we have seen that Midland 99, Ozark, and Goodwell, numerically, they are always the ones that produce better yields, numerically talking. Statistically talking, there are not significant difference among them except Greenfield. Greenfield is always lower, but is expected because it's a more short variety. Okay, now I would just bring that to the attention of everyone here is that's not everything when you think about selecting a variety. For instance, we have the Midland there that may yield as much as Midland 99, but the Midland is much more sparse than that, and we are going to have more proliferation of weeds there. So your quality is going to decrease, and perhaps your herbicides cost also is going to increase.
So, as with, and what we've always heard the whole time dealing with Bermuda grass, if you don't control the weeds and apply the fertility, Bermuda grass really isn't doing you a favor compared to some other summer forages that are out there. Fertility and weed control is a must in Bermuda grass to get its potential out of it. So I would think in the producers that I work with, those that are really trying to produce good quality hay, they're already doing the herbicide and the fertility as recommended by a soil test. So, you know, I don't see that as a great expense, but what they're looking for is the potential maximum harvest. So if what you're saying, based on these varieties, if you're looking at a hay meadow, you want to look at a more stand-up variety like the Midland 99, or the Ozark, because they really stand up and you have a better chance of harvesting a greater amount of tonnage.
Right.
Whereas if you're going to graze it, you could look at some of these other species because they're more spread out and on the ground, not a stand-up variety, but they're still very productive if the fertility and the management is there.
Don't get me wrong, let me tell you that. I will say, be honest to yourself. Are you buying a Bermudagrass sprig, and are you committed to really do a proper fertilization year after year and use herbicide and put money there so you can make the best of your hay? Okay, if that's the case, I would say it's really nice that you can invest in a more new and perhaps more expensive sprig. Now, if what you have in mind, and there's nothing wrong about that, you know what fits best to your system, you're thinking, okay, I just have a good Bermuda grass so my cattle can stay there continuously grazing, and I'm not gonna be doing a very well management. Go Greenfield.
Okay.
Greenfield, it's a much more resilient Bermuda grass. Why? Because it has more stolons, more rhizomes there, so there's more reserves, it's more tough.
So really what you're saying is that Greenfield could probably take more abuse.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
That's the best way to define. Even what I say is, in a variety like that we have a more sparse sod, please don't cut and don't graze lower than 3 inches. Well, if the situation is pretty bad and you need to abuse them 1 or 2 times every 3-4 years, that's fine. Now, Greenfield, I tell you can go low 1 inch, not all the time, but at least a half of the time. It can take more abuse, yeah.
Because it is more of a on-the-ground type variety.
Indeed.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about these improved sprig varieties?
Oh, don't ask that. We're going to be here for the entire day.
All right. Well, Dr. Rocateli, I do want to ask you, because I deal with a lot of producers here in the county, and putting in an improved hybrid variety, and that can be quite costly.
Yes.
The sprig varieties can. Yes. I have numerous producers that have established seed varieties, and they do very well. Could you maybe comment a little bit on some of the seeded varieties? I know you've done some work with them also, and maybe you could share a little bit of information about some of those seeded varieties.
Right. Actually, we have also a seeded Bermuda grass variety trial in 2 locations. That's going to be Chickasha and Haskell. We have 10 different varieties there. Our check is Wrangler. That's a very common one. And you have pretty much new varieties from different seed companies. In the PDF files, we also have the yield of them there for the last 2 years. So when you talk about seeded and sprigged varieties, what I'm seeing is after that they are well established, they will yield about the same. Now, I would say, how much are you planning on spend and how much risk are you planning taking? That's when you need to think on you go seed or sprig. Sprig, I would say, you are taking much less risk of failure, but you are spending much more money. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that 1 acre of sprigging Bermuda grass may hit $140 if you go 60 bushels of sprig per acre, right?
Sure, yeah, it can be quite costly.
And when you do seed, what, $60, even less than that?
Right, you know, pretty good rule of thumb is about $5 a pound. You know, the recommendation that we have when you're seeding a variety, you hear all different kinds of seeding rates, but Bermuda grass, there's almost 1 million seed in a pound, 900,000 plus, and so about 2 pounds. So roughly, depending on the variety that you choose, that you're looking at about $10 an acre in seed going at 2 pound rate.
Right.
So 2 pound versus of seed versus the sprig cost, that's where the money difference is. But you are much slower in production because you're starting from a seed versus than you're starting from a sprig. I understand that. But I know we've had very good luck in Payne County with some seeded varieties, and they've done very well once, like you said, once they get established.
When you place a sprig, you're placing there a plant that's already ready. Just need to continue growing, right?
It's just a transplant type situation.
When you place a seed, it's a very tiny and need to start from seedling. And also, sprigging, we're sprigging much earlier. So that can compete with weeds much better than a seedling later on in May to June that we're placing there and the weeds are coming crazy. Right. So the first year on a seeded Bermuda grass, although it's cheap, there are lots of risk there and commitment on keep those weeds down. And sometimes herbicide might be not the best idea because even if it's a selective herbicide, it can affect the seedling. So it's about like always mowing and keep the weeds low. So it's much more management. So how much after that you finish seeding are you spending with all that management, and how much of your time you're spending there? So see, there are lots of things that we need to put in this scale to consider one or the other.
True. But you look at it at a producer standpoint, that labor's always free, right?
Yeah, if that's the case, yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Rocateli, thank you for going over these varieties and explaining the seeded varieties. What we're going to do is go on to our next stop, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later about some alfalfa. All right, thanks for staying with us. I do want to remind and encourage everyone that if you do have questions about the Bermuda grass variety plots that Dr. Rocateli has, go down to Q&A and type in your question, and we'll address that question. One question, Doctor, thank you for joining me. One question that I do have, we talked about establishment of Bermuda grass, and you said do that after the last killing frost.
Right.
What do you consider to be the latest that you could sprig? Dry land, not your situation with irrigation, all dry land.
Oh yes, oh yes. Let's always think about dry land because irrigation for Bermuda grass is a luxury, we know.
Very much so.
Yeah. So first, let me say, when I say do it after the last killing frost, the main problem with the killing frost is if you have your sprigs out of the ground and you are transport them and comes a killing frost. That can really ruin your sprigs. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can place the sprig, let's say in February, and they are dormant, and you already had placed them in the ground in a good, like lower than 2 inches or about 2 inches, it's not going to be a big of a problem. So that's why I say it's safer that we do after the last killing frost, because the last killing frost can come anytime suddenly and it can catch your sprigs out of the ground. Mm-hmm. Now, you can go, I would say, April, I would even beginning of May might be a good idea. After that, we start to have higher temperatures. Those sprigs are going to be actively growing even out of the ground, and they can get desiccated very fast. So that's when it may start to go a little south if you start to do the sprigs.
So with some situations like this, the year that we've had so far this year, you may have been given a little grace time and been possibly a little later because we were somewhat milder this year. So kind of playing the weather, but you're looking at an early May at latest.
Right.
To get the sprigs in.
Yes.
We have the question, remind me again where I can get the forage yield results. All the documentation that the speakers will refer to will be emailed to the participants at the conclusion of the program. We will get them to them. We also have the question of typically with seeded establishment, are you limited on herbicide options at the beginning of growth and development? That's an excellent question. Controlling those weeds after they've just germinated and get started. Do you have some good recommendations on herbicides at that time?
I would say before putting any herbicide there, anyone, even if they are considered selective and they say that don't harm Bermuda grass, look on the label and see about the seedling of Bermuda grass. That's very important. For instance, I know that prowl can have some effect on the seedling, and other herbicides. So, I mean, the best thing to do is always check the label and make sure that you are looking on seedling of Bermuda grass rather than just established Bermuda grass pastures.
Okay. All right.